across the country are suing pharmaceutical companies for the part they've played. One such city is Boise, and I sat down with the city's mayor to discuss why he thinks this is the best option. In 2013, the city of Boise saw one death stemming from an opioid overdose. Just last year, that number jumped to 110. Seeing such a staggering jump, Idaho's capital city has taken action by suing 20 pharmaceutical companies for their role.
These companies have acted irresponsibly. They knew of the dangers and continued to really push these prescription drugs out, these opioids out. The doctors overdid it. The pharmaceutical company knew of those dangers, and there's a lot of similarities to the tobacco companies, is what we found. That despite knowing these things, and the addictive nature of these drugs, they continue to prescribe and to ignore those dangers.
What exactly was it that made you and your colleagues decide this is a lawsuit that needs to happen here in Boise to make change?
Well, we've been looking at the situation for, over the course of this whole last year, and have been contacted by various entities to join, and we've, done the legwork and believe it was time. And also those numbers, what we see locally, we can't allow that to continue, and I think our getting into the lawsuit and our filing is also an important piece.
It's a fight the mayor thinks will be tough, but fortunately, Boise is not alone.
I don't want to downplay how difficult it's going to be, but there are dozens and dozens of cities involved. We believe there'll be many more.
And he believes that evidence as well as common sense will prevail.
These are sophisticated companies. It's a little hard to claim they didn't know things when they're as knowledgeable, as data-driven as any companies on the globe. This is an epidemic that we can cure. We can certainly make headway, and we think even more than that.
And we'll hear more from Boise Mayor Dave Bieter on the city's lawsuit against pharmaceutical companies in our hour-long Finding Hope special that will air statewide on December 9th. Well, before we get to the rest of your top stories, let's take a look at the day ahead. I can't speak today. It's Monday.
You're frozen. It's because it's so cold outside.
Yeah, that's my excuse today.
Your mouth is just frozen, much like your windshield will be. If you park outdoors, count on a couple extra minutes to scrape that windshield or let the car warm up. Anyway, look at these temperatures right now. 23 in Ontario, 20 in Mountain Home, in the teens over in the Magic Valley and points eastward. It is 0 in Stanley and single digits in the Long Valley this morning. So as we bring the bus stop forecast back this week after the Thanksgiving holiday, mostly clear and very cold for that morning wait. By the time the kids get home this afternoon, as you head out to pick them up, look for increasing clouds. Seasonably cool temperatures once again today, though, with mid-40s on tap for the Treasure Valley. We get wet after this, and I will break that down for you coming up in my full forecast a little bit later.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Rachel. Driving north on Highway 55, you can't miss the Avamore subdivision just outside of Eagle. The community is turning a lot of heads because of how they've created a hometown feel without depending on others to help them grow. Don Nelson explains.
It really is fascinating how Avamore has become this self-sustaining, self-sufficient community. From their water to construction to recreation, it's all right there just like they planned it. In this state of 208, it's easy to see how this could be the model for future development in the foothills.
But way before it became Avamore, it was home to the MacLeod family. Colin MacLeod was a Scottish immigrant who purchased the land back in 1916.
The MacLeod family made their living in the foothills. The road that came up out of the valley that served Idaho City and Pearl, see that flat spot up there? That was the road. That was the toll road. And so that's why the porch is on that side of the house.
Decades later, Avamore
is really the first planned community of this scale. We use about 60% less water than the typical home in the valley.
And just like 100 years ago, water is the key ingredient to success. Conserve and reuse.
We don't want a single drop of water to go to waste.
In order to do that, a water reclamation facility had to be built.
We want to reuse every drop. So rather than drop it in the creek and eventually the Boise River, we store it in an underground aquifer, and then the next season we can pull it up for the irrigation season.
It's not just the water. Construction materials are not thrown away but recycled. They even have their own quarry.
So we're now mining all of our own gravel, our landscape rock, almost everything. It's going to take, over the course of our lifetime, it'll be hundreds of thousands of trucks that won't be coming up the canyon to deliver rock to us.
Speaking of the highway,
eventually the light gets replaced, and we'll put ramps and stuff, so you won't have to slow down. You'll be able to go through, so we're working on a tiered system with ITD.
Next to the original homestead is the new home of the Eagle Rodeo, but things will be changing because in just a few years there are plans to move the rodeo up to the plateau right over there.
And why not? The McLeod family loved the rodeo, and they loved this land.
It's important to the family. You know, when we're done, we'll have somewhere around 18,000 acres of untouched foothills other than the trails that go through them, and a substantial fund to care for all those lands.
But for now, you can ride the many miles of bike trails that wind through the hills, enjoy a glass of wine at the soon-to-be-finished vineyard and tasting room, which, by the way, will be in the old homestead, and toast with friends at a newly anticipated event center in the old Red Barn. As they say up here, fresh air, fresh ideas. Don Nelson, 6 on your side.
Well, the community is invited to give their opinions and comments on a proposed dog park in Meridian today. The Southwest Ada County Alliance is applying for a capital grant to build the park. It would be 1 acre, fully fenced with separate areas for big and small dogs. It would also be a covered shelter and more. Tonight's meeting will be held at the Victory Branch Library from 6 to 7 p.m. Well, type 1 diabetics tackle countless insulin shots every day, but some can't afford the life-saving drug. November marks Diabetes Awareness Month, and this morning's 6 on Your Side's Jessica Taylor shows us what a day in the life of a diabetic looks like.
An illness sometimes invisible to the naked eye, but if you take a closer look, you'll see how type 1 diabetes can affect a teen's life.
It's hard to explain to people who don't know anyone with diabetes or haven't, lived with it like we have. Like, they don't understand the struggle and like what we have to go through every single day.
In her day, totaling more than 30 needles. Lauren takes an insulin shot before every meal and an additional one before bed. She also pricks her finger every half hour.
It is a scary disease. They are in charge of keeping themselves alive every day.
Something it hasn't stopped her from, her love of softball.
Softball is my number one. I love it. I love softball so much.
Her frustrations with the disease being she can't always play to her fullest ability.
Other players had to sub in for me, and it was annoying because it's something I love so much, and seeing that opportunity get taken away because like my blood sugar is low.
A frustration other diabetics face, the price of insulin. Depending on insurance, the cost can range from $20 to more than $1,000, causing some diabetics to resort to extreme and dangerous tactics to save money.
And it's 20,000 plus, with everything that they have to have.
Nearly 30% of participants in a recent poll said they've rationed insulin because they couldn't afford it. According to another study, 1 in 4 diabetics admitted to having rationed their insulin at some point. But making adjustments to insulin can be a dangerous result.
They can dose too much and they can go into a coma. They can dose not enough. They can go into ketoacidosis. Both are very dangerous. You die from this.
Despite the dangers and frustrations that comes with it, Lauren has found ways to keep her head up and not her blood sugars. Jessica Taylor, 6 on Your Side.
Well, the Boise State Broncos are championship bound after defeating the Utah State Aggies on the blue turf Saturday night, 33-24. It's a monumental win for the team, cementing their spot in the Mountain West Conference Championship, now set for Saturday right here in Boise. The 7th straight win for the Broncos also boosts the team up 2 spots in the AP poll to number 19 and bumps the Aggies off the top 25 list for the victory, or with the victory. Now that means the Broncos will host the championship this weekend against Fresno State in a rematch from last season.
It's exciting for the town and for the players, and to have the championship here again and us make it is fantastic.
Yeah, it is just one more reason that Boise is awesome. We have an incredible school and team, so we will be rooting for you.
The Broncos and Bulldogs have already faced off once during the regular season this year, with Boise State stealing the victory 24-17. The championship game is scheduled for Saturday night at Albertson Stadium, kickoff set for 5:45. Well, it's time to take those snow boots off the shelves and gear up for some outdoor winter fun here in the valley. The Tubing Hill is officially open for the season at Eagle Island State Park. This weekend was the opening weekend for the hill, and families were already having a tubular time. It might not be snowing naturally in the Treasure Valley quite yet, but that's no problem at the park because they create their own snow, which families say is just as fun as the real stuff. The Hill is open daily from 9 to 9, and reservations can be made online. Well, another Christmas tree will be lit up in the City of Trees tonight. Governor Otter and First Lady Lori Otter will host the annual lighting of Idaho's Capitol Christmas tree. Festivities are set to start at 5 o'clock tonight on the Capitol steps, and there will be some complimentary hot cocoa, apple cider, and cookies for those in attendance. And Rachel, for those in attendance, it could be a little chilly, right?
You're going to want that nice hot cocoa. Yeah, we'll start our day with a need for warm beverages and end our day that way as well.
Even hotter.
Especially once that sun sets. Yeah, those temperatures, as we know, drop really quickly. This morning, we're starting off in the 20s once again across the Treasure Valley. We've seen sub-zero temperatures in places like Stanley and even Fairfield this morning. So if you are headed out to that tree lighting tonight in downtown Boise, by 5 o'clock, we'll have dropped down to about 41 degrees. And as we know, things are getting dark around 5 o'clock, but we'll also see things getting cloudy this evening, even though we're starting off mostly clear. Those clouds will be on the increase as the day progresses. I'll talk about why that is in just a moment. But here's your hourly forecast. Our typical daytime high for November 26th is 43 degrees. We will stay just a tiny bit above average again with a high of 46 expected in Boise. Light winds today and dry conditions, but man, we won't stay dry much longer. If you have some Christmas lights to finish putting on your house, today is the day to do it. By tomorrow, you won't want to be anywhere near your roof or a ladder. It'll be too slippery for it, as all of this is headed our direction. It'll kind of pummel the Pacific Northwest with rain today. I'll talk about when the rain and the snow will start flying here in the Gem State coming up in a few minutes.
All right. Thank you, Rachel. It's 6:42 now. A battle at the U.S.-Mexico border is heating up this morning. We'll have the very latest on the tense situation coming up after the break.
You're waking up with 6 on Your Side News. Good morning, Idaho.
Welcome back, everybody. This morning, the battle at the border is heating up. The U.S. temporarily closed and later reopened a port of entry along the U.S.-Mexico border Sunday night, firing tear gas at migrants after some attempted to bypass Mexican police in Tijuana to rush into the United States near San Diego. ABC's Lana Zach has the latest from Washington.
A tense situation on the U.S.-Mexico border. Migrants from Central America breaking through Mexico's police lines in Tijuana, pushing past Mexican authorities in riot gear to climb over barricades and surge into the no man's land between the U.S. and Mexico. U.S. Customs and Border agents responding with tear gas, temporarily closing the San Ysidro port of entry to all people on both sides of the border. The situation has been threatening to boil over for some time now. Tijuana's mayor has called the hundreds of migrants waiting there a humanitarian crisis. During a protest along the border on Sunday, some tried to